Hi, I'm Lisa. Welcome to Tour with Lisa. Today's virtual tour is on the Vietnam War Memorial in Washington, D.C. on the National Mall. And the idea to build a memorial was from a Vietnam veteran by the name of Jan Scruggs. He'd come home from the war. He was watching a movie called The Deer Hunter. Maybe you've seen it. It occurred to him that our country was divided, our country was angry, and we need some healing. So he thought maybe by building a memorial to those that had died in Vietnam, that maybe we could bring about some healing for our country. So the idea gets presented through Congress. It gets passed right away, which is unusual because usually it takes several years for these memorials to get approved. Once he gets the approval, they've been fundraising, and the construction actually starts in 1982, and it was completed and dedicated in 1984. Now, as with all memorials, there's a design competition, and with this memorial, there was 4 criteria that needed to be met. 1, it needed to be reflective and contemplative. 2, it needed to harmonize with the surroundings. 3, it needed to list all of the names of those that had died or were missing in action. And 4, it could not make a political statement. Now, that last criteria seems a little odd, doesn't it? But during that time, our country was very divided. There were a lot of people that were angry about the war. Many people thought we shouldn't be over there. And it's kind of like today, a lot of people are on the same, have the same feelings. We shouldn't be in Iran, Afghanistan. We shouldn't be fighting these wars. But regardless of what you feel about the wars, you always respect and admire your military personnel. I mean, they are given the greatest respect. But it wasn't like that for our soldiers coming home from Vietnam. In fact, it was quite the opposite. They were spit upon, they were called names. There would actually be groups of protesters that would be waiting at the airports when they arrived, and as they were coming off the planes, they were yelling at them, calling them names and spitting on them. And I have talked to a few Vietnam veterans because I thought that's just crazy, but they said yes, that is absolutely true. So some veterans would even choose to get out of their military clothes and put on civilian clothes just so nobody would recognize them. So I think it's very sad that these veterans weren't afforded the same kind of respect and honor that we give our veterans today. And they also had a very vicious war. And this war was fought. The veterans or the soldiers that fought in this war actually had about 240 days of combat per year. Now compare that to World War II, when the average days of combat for a soldier was actually 40 days for the 4-year term. That's quite a difference. Now I've tried to figure out why is it that we treated the veterans that way, and why it doesn't make sense. And the only thing that I've been able to come up with is the fact that this was the very first war that was televised. If you think about World War II, very few people actually had televisions in their home. And most of them got their news on the radio, or you would go to a movie theater and you would hear it on a newsreel. And then again, you were getting a more censored version of the news, painting more of a rosier picture. So you didn't really actually understand or know what was actually happening on the battlefield. You didn't have all the movies like we do now to show you what was going on. Maybe you read something in a book, but that's completely different. So in the 60s and the 70s, the reporters were actually going out on the battlefields, and they were on the front lines and they were reporting. So you have this news reporting nightly. So you're seeing it every day, and you're seeing all these horrific things that are happening. Innocent people were getting killed and horrible things were happening, but that's war. And it's not like this didn't happen in other wars. War is cruel, war is vicious, that's just war. So maybe that's a reason, people didn't quite understand. And of course, they were angry that we were over there, but why would you take it out on, the soldiers and the military? To me, that doesn't make sense. So that's my philosophy. And if you have a different thought as to why we treated our veterans that way, put it in the comments below. I'd be curious to see what other people think about that. Now, back to the memorial design competition. So the 4 criteria were met, and the winner of the design competition was a 21-year-old architect student at Yale, and her name was Maya Lin. She was born and raised in Athens, so she was an American. But once the memorial was built, there was a lot of criticism, a lot of naysayers. People didn't like it. There were comments that it looked like a big scar on the land, and it looked like a big tombstone. So to appease those people, there was a statue built, and we call it the 3 servicemen statue. And it's a Black American, a white American, a Hispanic American, and they're coming out of the bushes and they're looking directly at the apex of the wall. Now, I disagree. I think the memorial is absolutely beautiful. I think it does the job. It's a very emotional memorial. And once you go, I think you'll know what I mean. But as I said, the soldiers are coming out of the bush and they're looking directly at the apex of the wall. So at the apex of the wall, which is in the center, and as you walk along the wall, it starts out very short and goes up to taller. And once you get to the middle, that's where the name starts. And the first name is recorded as 1959. The names go down one side and then they come back around and then they go back up the other side and they meet back at the apex. And then it says 1975. Now, the actual first casualty was 1957. There was a soldier that was killed in 1957 that is considered part of the Vietnam conflict. And it was 2 years later before other soldiers were killed. So 1959 is when there was another couple soldiers killed. And of course, the major killings were more in the later 60s and early 70s. But there's over 58,000 names on the wall, nearly 59,000. And next to each name, you're going to see a symbol. You'll either see a cross or you will see a diamond shape. If you see a diamond shape, you know the soldier has passed. If you see a cross, it means the soldier is missing in action. So if a soldier that was missing in action could be found, then they could come back and they would put a circle around the cross. However, that has not happened and probably will not happen. So also on the wall, there are names of 8 women that died in Vietnam. There is one 15-year-old. There are 5 16-year-olds. There are 12 17-year-olds. But the biggest and largest group of soldiers that died were 18-year-olds. Now, in comparison with World War II, the average soldier in Vietnam was probably 2 to 3 years younger also. So another interesting, I think, fact between the 2 wars. So as you're walking down the memorial, a lot of times you'll see at the bottom of the memorial, you will see a lot of memorabilia. People come to the memorial and they leave things. I've seen combat boots, I've seen helmets, I've seen cans of beer, I've seen the dog tags, I've seen all kinds of things. And a lot of times school groups will write little essays on a soldier that was from their town. People leave flowers, people leave all kinds of things. And at the end of the night, the National Park Service comes through and they sweep up all those things and they store them, unless they're, perishable. So non-perishable items get archived and stored in a warehouse in Maryland. The idea was they were going to build a museum for the Vietnam memorabilia that's left at the wall. And as of a couple of years ago, I'm not sure if that's still going to happen. I hope it hasn't been scrapped because I think it sounds like a really fascinating museum. Also, one time somebody left a motorcycle at the wall. And I don't really know the story behind it, but that's quite a thing to leave at the wall. And it is pretty emotional as you walk by and see how tiny each name is, because that little tiny engraving of a name with somebody's husband or brother or boyfriend or uncle or whatever. And it's pretty emotional, pretty moving, I believe. Then as you come around on the mall, you'll walk, it's kind of like you're making a circle around. You'll come to another statue. And this is the Women in Service Vietnam Women's Memorial. And it was done in 1993 by a sculptor named Glenna Goodacre. It's beautiful. It's 3 women. One woman is holding a wounded soldier with his helmet off. The other woman is holding the helmet and kneeling. You might interpret that she's praying. And then the third one is looking up to the sky as if she's looking up for the helicopter to come help them. And then as you walk around, you meet back up with the 3 servicemen soldier. And also I want to note out, near the 3 servicemen soldier on the ground, there is a plaque that was put there in 2004 for those that died of things like Agent Orange, maybe committed suicide from PTSD, or died of other injuries, but not combat injuries. So also, if you're wanting to look up a name on the wall, they have these stations that have like these big thick telephone books that you can look up a name, but it might be a little bit easier just to download the app called The Wall and type in the name and find it. Each name is going to be on a panel. There's different panels on the wall, and they're numbered at the bottom. And they also are lettered with east or west to help you locate the name. So also, if you want to do a rubbing, you can ask someone at the National Park Service for a pencil and a piece of paper to do the rubbing. So thank you for visiting the Vietnam Wall Memorial with me. I hope that you actually get to go in person and see the wall, because it is quite a moving experience. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye.